you have with work. Okay, over to Claire.
Right, well, first of all, bear with me a little bit, because I haven't actually done any presenting for some time. I could be a bit rusty. Even opening my Mac was a bit stressful, having had it closed for about 6 months. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a tiny bit about me, but then I'm going to talk about 4 projects, and I'm going to do them in the context of kind of how you get to ideas, but all overridingly a little bit more about why we love what we do, and if you really think about why you're doing the things that you're doing, then you will come to great outcomes, even if you think that the project is not the thing that's for you. So hopefully it will make sense as we go through. I'm going to put a little timer on for myself as well, so that I can see if I'm going to be waffling. Unless as if I can't actually remember my passcode. Menopause brain. Right. So, hi. A little bit about me. Andy's already given you a little bit of context. I was shared a house with Andy. Maybe see me later for any stories. Northern, chatty, inquisitive, thoughtful, perfectionist. I think are the way that I would sum myself up. But really, it's not about me today. It's all about you guys. And it was Valentine's this week, so that kind of gives me license, I think, a little bit, to talk a little bit more about love and the things that we love. And it was interesting to see even some of the lovely gifts that Andy's giving away, kind of invoking it. And love is a bit of a cliche. We use it for everything. We send it in emojis multiple times a day to people. So let's actually talk about what it means to really feel a certain way about the work that you do. Because it's a roller coaster. It's all around us. We feel it in our fingers. You know, I mean, there's a reason why love gets repeated in so many ways around so many things. But unless you actually look at what it can mean and then apply it to what you're doing, because you've all chosen to be here for a reason. You've all chosen to be here, I hope, because you have a passion for the things that you do. And my passion, as Andy pointed out, has taken me all over the world. I wish I hadn't animated these little hearts, because I'll have to click through all of them. Actually, one place as a kid, I lived in North Carolina as well, which I think probably gave me the kind of the wanderlust a little bit. But just so that you know what I'm talking about and not like, well, who are you? You've just travelled a lot. I'm just going to show a little tiny film. It's a compilation of work just from the past 4 years, all out of the New York studio, so that you can see how much can get done in a short period of time and how diverse the work is that you're able to work on as well. Because for me, it's not about the brand or the category, it's about the ideas that come out of them. And it was only when I put this together, I realised I actually start with KY and Durex, which seems quite appropriate for the subject matter. So there's no sound on it because I hated the sound. It was one of those kind of free. Walgreens is Boots in the States. I'm going to talk about the pool chemicals and also the school education stuff. Done a lot of beer, but fun stuff. Done a lot of spirits in my time. Some that I would never ever buy. In fact, a lot of the brands that you will work on in the future are stuff that you will not get, you will never buy. Done fintech, done burgers, done hot dogs, done a lot of bourbon, which has been fun. I discovered a new love that I didn't realise that I had. So, and all of that stuff has won awards, which is fabulous, you know. So I've won a few things, but actually we've won a few things along the way. But if you just use love for all of that, then it kind of just feels like a throwaway. And the ancient Greeks had a much better way of talking about this, because they've got about like 6 different words for what love means. I thought that's a good way to structure my talk. I can break everything down, but don't take this isn't a scientific research thing, this is just me finding a nice way to structure my talk. So first, stored natural affection. Then there's philia, brotherly love. Then there's ludus, which is about playful affection and flirting. And then there's agape. There's also one more, eros, but I don't want to get into any issues and step over into kind of like where I'm going to get sanctioned by somebody or cancelled. So my spin on these, and this is how I'm going to talk about the work, is natural affection. You've really got to care about the work, no matter the task, small or big. If someone asks you to do something, do it to the best of your abilities. Doing the little things well leads to bigger opportunities. And it's so important when you're starting out as well. If you show the same amount of care for the smallest, oh, could you just do this? Rather than, oh, okay. Well, then it gets noticed. But if you do it and you deliver it and it's done, or if you even show some initiative and talk around it, go, oh, here's some other things I thought might be handy, it gets noted, it gets remembered, and it all moves you forward, and you'll enjoy it better if your mindset's in the right place. Then there's brotherly love or friendship. Teamwork makes the dream work. Sorry, I have lived in America, and these weird phrases do pop out sometimes. Whether it's our clients bouncing ideas off each other or getting feedback from stakeholders on projects, collaboration and communication, absolutely key. And you do become friends. You spend more time with the people that you work with than you do with your own families. So knowing what makes them tick, listening to what they say, I think that is actually the most important thing. Really good friends, and we'll all have them, are the ones that listen to you. The ones that hear what you are saying. It's not about them just offloading all of their problems. It'll be a real conversation. And that's what you need to do as designer. I think they talked about it yesterday. You've got to be a sponge. You've got to soak it all up and listen. Then there's playful affection and flirting. I saw in some of the Elmwood yesterday, they were showing kind of screen printing and doing this and kind of making stuff, and never ever lose that. You've got to have that sense of experimentation and joy. It fosters creativity, and it is really where you will grow through doing all of those things. We can take what we do way too seriously. At the end of the day, it's margarine. It's not. What we're working on will sometimes you can do things that really will shift kind of a cultural difference, but most of the time it's just have a safe space with which you can kind of play and enjoy, particularly at the beginning of a project where all the ideas start to come from. And then compassion, altruism, goodwill towards others. Make good choices for the brands that you work on and for yourself. When a brand is being redesigned, that's a perfect opportunity to be asking the questions around why are these bottles so heavy? How does that get shipped? Are the things that about the project that we're working on can actually benefit something in the future? Every agency I know will do pro bono work. They'll choose like a local charity to work for, or kind of support local cafe. Do something to give back. It makes you feel good, and then kind of the value that you can bring to it is huge. But spend your working hours just being kinder, I think would be the bottom line. So if I start with that first one, I'm going to take you through a case study that you would kind of, if it was delivered on your desk, and this is actually what happened, when the client opportunity came in, everybody was like, yeah, well, I'm not going to be involved in that. Because this is what it looked like. Pool chemicals for cleaning your swimming pools. First of all, none of us have ever had a swimming pool. Second of all, didn't even know you had to kind of do that kind of thing. And third of all, what a horrible category. Why would I want to be involved in that? There's never going to be an opportunity. That's going to be, so hard. But we went to meet the clients, and they were amazing. They were so lovely. The strategist on this, I swear, almost did a chemistry degree to actually understand how everything worked. But the outcome of this has won awards, but it also made us feel great. It made the brand increase. And actually, it was one of the things that got held up across the agency as best case. So if you look at where they are, H2H is been around for 90 years. It's trying to do everything, isn't it? It's trying to go, we're in the water, and we're kind of like, we're safe, and we've got a shield and a ribbon, so it feels like it's a guarantee. And one of the most important things when you're approaching this is like, you can't throw everything out, but what should you keep in order that it's not going to get lost? Because they needed to do something, because they had lost direction. Clorox, it's kind of like the ultimate bleach in America that's in all the household aisles, had entered the category. So they really wanted to differentiate the brand, build brand equity, and have a compelling tone of voice so they could retain the fact that they were the leader. They wanted to revolutionise. They talked a lot about, they presented of what Casper did for mattresses, what Method did for cleaning products. So they really were setting the bar high. They came to us kind of, we want to do this. And they wanted to really be about kind of putting the consumer first. So be relevant, grab attention, demystify. And if you walk down the aisles to see this stuff, it's kind of like you really kind of just feel overwhelmed. So this is Clorox, who'd entered the category, and this is what you would get to pour down your toilet at home. So, and everybody knows, kills 99% of bacteria. So we're never going to out-Clorox because they've been saying that for so long. So what is it that we say, and what is it about our product that made a difference? And this is where the real understanding and listening came in. It kind of turns out that they had a special formula. It was essentially like sunscreen that was in the water, that was in their product, which meant that it kept the pool protected, and it was you couldn't get it wrong, whereas all the other products you could make a mistake. So it made you feel confident. So how do we, you can see other competition just following us, they have a wave, we'll have a wave. Clorox just coming in exactly how they look like in the main consumer aisle, so everybody goes, I'll buy Clorox because I already trust it. But what does HTH actually stand for? So we know, they've been around for a long time, you can't get it wrong, you feel safe and secure. So efficacy was not the problem. We're never going to be stronger than, we can't go out there and go, we're the strongest. Consumers already believe that it's going to work. So the problem is that they don't believe that they'll be able to do it effectively. They're the ones who are worried about making the mistake. So it wasn't about efficacy, it was about empowerment. How can our brand look like something, oh, I can do that. I feel really safe and secure doing that. Not a problem. I'm going to buy you because it's really easy for me to understand. So we talked about being the empowering partner, motivational, inspiring and committed. If that was who our brand was, then what are we going to look like? So let's think. We say we're delivering on empowerment, we want to grab attention, we want to differentiate ourselves, we want to build distinctive assets, and we want to demonstrate that we can get the job done. And that's our starting point. Is there anything that you can think of that makes you feel safe around water? Is there anything that you can think of symbolically?
Circular
Life
things.
preservers, yes. Yeah, the kind of it's the Coast Guard. There's the pool attendant. There's a language of feeling safe around water that we all know and we all understand. So you start to pull that together and say, if you're trusted, whatever life throws at you, if you see a lifeguard, I'm going to swim on this beach. If you see a lifeguard, I'm going to let my kids into that swimming pool. And a swimming pool is a family thing, and if you get it wrong, it's super upsetting. But whether it's the United States Coast Guard or the Life Preserver, there's a language there, isn't there? It's bold and graphic and straightforward. You understand it. So how do we use that with our brand? Simple. We make it into the Life Preserver. You see that, and you just get that it's about safety around water. Nobody has to tell you that's what it's all about. So you go from here to there. We still have some movement, we still have the primary colours, but we've taken away all the nonsense that you don't need to have, and we can justify it to the client, and they get it because they saw all the things before. I'm like, yeah, that's what we're aiming for, that's what we want to achieve. So then suddenly your packs become calmer, rather than this chaotic splashing, as if you're drowning in the pool. So you go from here to there, really look, excellent, you took some of that text off. It could be like a Joy Division cover. It's just pared back and simple, and just the things that you need to have are there. And when you look at shelf, you can kind of go, that's the one that I want. That makes me feel calm, under control, and safe. So because we go back to the kind of the things like I said, around loving. If we hadn't loved this, we'd have just gone through the motions. If we hadn't really cared about this project and saw how much the client cared about making a difference, then we wouldn't have had the product range that we had. We wouldn't have had the success that it has. And so I think it's just a case in point of that. I'm really proud to put the first thing in my portfolio to show you is pool cleaning products, because great ideas will come from anywhere, and you shouldn't lust after working on the cool brands. You should work on the brands that you're going to make cool, that other people are going to talk about. And another little misnomer just to touch on as well, if you do branded packaging, you're doing identity design. This whole idea of corporate branding and packaging, that's brand identity. And yes, it appears on pack, but there's a whole world, just like within the corporate world, in which it will show up. So if you think about it, work in that way, then you'll really approach the things that you're doing differently. So pay attention to detail, be reliable, keep learning, build trust, take initiative, and you will get noticed. Natural affection. So that brings me on to next one. Friendship. Teamwork makes the dream work. At the very beginning of lockdown, we had just started conversations with Beam Suntory, who have Jim Beam as one of their bourbons. They have a whole portfolio of drinks. And the project that they had asked us to do, we did everything remotely. We even got the head distiller, Freddie No, to do a bourbon tasting with us, where they sent out little bottles and we were all on a Zoom screen together. And I think the way that this one project started then set a pattern for us to then, one, this was very successful to them and started getting talked about within the business. And two, because of how we worked so collaboratively with the client, really understood their goals and what they were aiming for, it meant that we then just got the next project and the next project and the next project and the next project. And that really is about that listening, understanding, and kind of building that relationship. So Basil Hayden is what I'm going to talk about. This is a raffle prize. We'll check it actually makes its way out to the back, but if you want to pass that around, and you can see it as it goes. I'm not going to go through this one as much as detail as I just did with the HTH. I just wanted to touch on kind of the strategy and the thinking, because it's exactly the same as working on the HTH project. You've got to understand what's inside that bottle and why you would want to have it in order to reflect what it is like on the outside and how it behaves. So, all bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon. You can only be called a bourbon if you're made in Kentucky. And there's small batch bourbons that Beam Suntory owned. There's a portfolio of them. They had identified Basil Hayden as the one that they wanted to make international. They wanted it to become more luxury and it to actually, and truth and point, I got that delivered to Andy's house. You know, it's now, they've started with the whole, actually they haven't got enough liquid to keep up with the exports since the redesign. But the bourbon category often feels it's a competition of strength. Whether you're looking at Booker's or Knob Creek, or it kind of feels like it's, death by firewater. It's kind of like if you're drinking a bourbon, it's a real commitment. And their whole brand world kind of fell into this dark, heavy, which wasn't then reflected. It was more the category of bourbon that absolutely wasn't them. And premium bourbons either challenge you to take it hot or to its entry level that's kind of super democratizing. So people would almost dismiss them as just being too weak and not for me. So there's a gap in the middle for a bourbon that really invites you to keep coming back for more. So this was the gap that we wanted to fill, And the thing about the bourbon industry in Kentucky, everybody knows each other. They're all friends. They all talk and share and discuss, and and that idea of the sharing and the friendship around it is a real Kentucky spirit. So the ownership of sharing and against the endurance of enjoyment, we really want to be about, not be about people who collect it and never open it, or people who just want the firewater. And Freddie No, who's the distiller at Beam, said, I've always told people to drink bourbon any damn way they please. So it's actually down to you. There isn't one way that's right or one way that's wrong. And the way that the Basil Hayden looked before we did the redesign was this. It was the quirkiest looking bottle you've ever seen in your life. It had the belt and the buckle around it. It had a picture of a barrel on the top. It actually had Basil Hayden written 3 different ways on it. Had this, we called it the dirty vest, that kind of went over the top, that Bargman hated because it would rip and tear. And yet it was one of their premium, they wanted it to be premium. It was going to turn up looking terrible and grotty. So the idea behind this came, if you're a bourbon that's to be savoured however you like, if you're lighter and full of all these gentle, delicate notes and the richness of the wrap, then actually it feels like they're trying to convey the idea of the barrel or the room in there. It's got the band around it, that you get the bands that go around the barrel, the image of the barrel itself, but it's all just kind of not working together in one place. So that's where we took the band itself and said, well, this could be one of our distinctive band assets. That's the thing that you see from behind the bar. the actual monogram of Basil Hayden, we need to elevate that a little bit more. We need to see what our off-pack is going to be. And if this is about illuminating the best of the barrel, the way that we use our photography has always got to have that light that runs through it. So about radiating warmth, generously crafted, and this quiet confidence. And then all of that becomes reflected in the choices that we make for design. So we can say, you know, if this is about echoing the barrel, then the crown cork needs to feel like the stopper, the bung that you pull out of the barrel. That's the thing that you interact with every single day. Let's then make that look like the embossing that gets burnt into the side of the barrel. Let's make sure that our language conveys, because that's what the mixologists want to be reading, all of this information, or when you're at home you want to see all of that as well. And when you walk around the rick houses with all of these bourbons stacked high, there's little bits of paper stuck on everything, kind of marking which keg is which and what date it's been done and when it was last tested. So the eclectic nature of it all coming together kind of feels like that notebook. So we're not a million miles from where you were before in terms of how everything is positioned together, but it is a million miles because now it actually feels quality, because the barrel is the end on of the barrel, which is like the stamp on the top. The band now is all metal, like you would get around a barrel. And even though it looks like little different bits of paper, it's actually all die cut and embossed when you actually see the bottle itself. So having done this, we could then look at the brand world, so that you would see that and you'd get, that's Basil Hayden. It's not anybody else's drink. You could think about how that would come to life, kind of like in our packing or in a built environment, and how all of those elements come together. I'm a great, when you capture all of the assets together of what you have to work with the brand, it's always really satisfying, and particularly when you start to get lots of different bourbon projects to do, to be able to quickly see how differentiated they are from each other, and really understanding these are all the marks, these are our colourways, this is our photography choice, and this is how we show up. So illuminating the best of the barrel, we did loads of tone of voice work, amazing writers that we would work with. Actually, Neil, the writer on this, started life as a senior designer, then design director, but always loved writing, so we moved into the strategy team, and he's now just moved to Read Words to be creative director of copy there. So also, your career paths can change based on your passions. So, from there to there, if you really understand what the thing is that's in the bottle, ask people the right questions, then you get to great outcomes that become objective rather than subjective, because you can all talk about the reasons why you wanted to do something. And this is the full range, but the toast at the end, they do limited editions a few times a year, so then this is about looking at how you can extend across that. So from there, we did Hardens Creek, which is a new to world brand. I'm just going to click through these really quickly. So now that you've seen those compilation pages, so Hardens Creek is they call them orphan barrels. When there's a barrel that's in there that doesn't belong to any of the particular bourbons, but there's something about the balance of it and they want to have a limited edition of them, it's going to all come from Hardens Creek. Which the story of Hardens Creek is the first well where they got the water for being to make their first ever bourbons. So the whole of the identity is based on this idea of how water runs through and spreads out and cascades, and you get from a small rivulet, you go out wider and wider. So Hardens Creek and its whole brand world. Then Knob Creek, we didn't work on the bottles for Knob Creek, but we did the whole visual identity, so for the world that they live in. So understanding the equities that they have in order that it shows up in the right way. Because Knob Creek is a dark brand, it does speak more to that kind of the heat of bourbon and something that is strong. And all of these we got because of that beginning first project. So working on Old Overholt, which is the barkeep's favourite. It's the one that they will use if you go to any bar in the cool place in the States. This is the one that they're gonna be enjoying, and then Old Overholt as well. So we got to know bourbon very well, but because we were doing all those projects and they enjoyed working with us, we're involved with a little museum that talks all about how we were established. So then we did the identity for them as well, which kind of almost fits into the pro bono area, but a great thing for the designers to get involved with. And yeah, just super, and we did actually get it all carved out of wood and really played on the history of Kentucky and where they're from, kind of weavings and tapestries and kind of all of the different associations. So there you go. Brotherly love and friendship. Building relationships with your team boosts creativity, solving problems together, just generally better communication. Like, talk about stuff after a meeting straight away, in the cab on the way back, walking home, if you're flying from somewhere, kind of go, how did you ask? How did you think I did in there? Do you think I could have done something differently? Like, build that, because it's those connections that sustain great work, but it's also those connections that mean that the work with your clients gets richer and better as well. It's about personal growth, shared responsibility, because you're never doing it on your own, and just achieving big goals. So let's get to flirting. This is a quick but fun one. KinderCare is one of the US's biggest preschool, after-school organisations. It takes babies from 8 weeks old to look after them when mums have to go, because maternity leave is rubbish in the States, when they need to go back to work, all the way through to just before you go to college. And it's big business. We did a redesign of their preschools. We worked on the corporate identity for them. And then they came to us with they had this preschool thing that was kind of like YMCA, but every time they described it, they talked about it in relation to somebody else. It's kind of like this and it's kind of like that. So they're not the school, they're not educating the kids, they're this safe space, preschool or after school, where you can go and there's different stuff that you can do that is about really exploring everything you learnt in school. Because you can't compete with what the school taught you because they have their curriculum. But actually, this brand, which is called Champions, I'll skip forward a little bit, was called Champions, was their great name, first of all, was there, in order to kind of allow kids to experiment and be their best and not worry about tests or ratings or grades or what and that is such, remember what this kind of thing was about. I've said it for you, to you all. Having fun in the things you're doing is super important, and this kind of exemplified that. So in one of the first meetings we had with them, I was like, what champions of what? And when they started to explain to us, that we give kids the opportunity to not feel that they can try and build something and it collapses. It doesn't matter. They can draw something, they can try whatever they want in this safe environment. So what now, it just feels like generic. You could have swapped out any preschool, after school in there. But if we say champions of what if and why not, then it's kind of like, just champion anything. What if I tried that? Why shouldn't I do this? What are the things that, that we could do and explore? And all of the language of the classroom, all of the items that you have around you in academia, what if you kind of subverted them into behaving however they wanted to behave? So suddenly, the what ifs and why nots are, all of those things can be anything, because this is your time to have no pressure and just enjoy. And that's probably the best place you have to learn. So we work with an illustrator to just take everyday school objects and turn them into anything from imagination that could then talk about different aspects of what it was that they delivered. And what's great is, lots of the times where Champions is, it might be in the school gym after class. So they have these little carts that they can just wheel in and then kind of open it up, and all of this stuff kind of pops out of it. So learn, unlearn, relearn, skills to thrive, meet this moment. The whole language of everything you're doing is suddenly transformational. The colours that you're using are ones that kind of speak also, they're kind of, just play because they're primary colours. But something that could feel appropriate, because there's 17-year-olds in there, and there's also 11-year-olds in there. So there's something that kind of will fit with all of them. So play is really important. It was particularly important to this client, but you should take on that same mentality as well. You learn a lot. It's experimenting with what you learn that's really the thing that's going to kind of drive you forward. the ubiquitous water bottle with the branding on it. So, playing boosts creativity, it encourages taking risks as well. If you feel safe, you're going to just give it a go. It sparks imagination, it encourages learning, it promotes growth of the team, of you professionally, it enhances collaboration. If people feel safe just mucking around in that you're not going to get judged and go, oh, I just was thinking about this, then more ideas come out. I mean, that's what, when you have crits, should be all about. It should be about sharing to move forward rather than sharing work that you feel is then just being criticised. Builds confidence and cultivates positive culture within an agency. And the last case, if you're all still with me, is compassion, altruism and goodwill. So we always love to do pro bono work, done it across kind of Dance for Life in the Netherlands, Save the Children, and sometimes they are very worthy causes. Sometimes they're worthy causes because they mean a lot to us. And during lockdown, we were big at sending gifts to clients because we weren't seeing them. We were kind of we were doing a project with Colgate, and we went, oh, let's send them some mint flavoured cocktails that they can have, so that when we start the briefing session, so there's this famous speakeasy in New York called PDT, Please Don't Tell. It's in St. Mark's Square over in the Village, and you actually access it through a hot dog stall. You walk in, there's a telephone booth, you open the telephone booth, you dial, and they'll decide to let you in, and the back of the phone booth opens and you walk through into this amazing cocktail bar. So we frequented it quite often. So we asked if they would make some cocktails for us. They made some cocktails. They were amazing cocktails, but they were in just really naff bottles. So we were like, oh, we should help them out because they were struggling as well. So that was one project. But you had to walk through the hot dog place on the way there. You had to walk through Criff Dogs. So then that became the next itch that we wanted to scratch. It's like, can we redo Criff Dogs? So we also got Hot Dogs for Life. Whenever we were doing anything, we're like, oh, let's get some hot dogs. Even at our Christmas party, where we'd all been fed, he still turned up afterwards, which was good, with loads of hot dogs to kind of soak it all up. So Criff Dogs, frankly the best. None of us can take claim for that. That was one of the great things that they already said about themselves. And Criff Dogs, as well as PDT, every band that comes into town will end up here as well. I mean, it is a New York institution. But again, COVID happened and it really, really struggling. So we wanted to look at what the language of New York was, and particularly St. Mark's Square. So this is the overall capture of the work that we did. But that centre piece, remember you walk through Criff Dogs and you go through the phone box. Those are like the little calling cards for all the businesses, all this kind of, there's a real kind of typographic vernacular for that area, of all the signage and everything. So we're doing this for them, one, because we want to help the business, but two, it's great for the studio. People want to get involved with it, you know? It's just a fun project to have. They were this kind of, started out as a skater brand, a bit kind of 4-4, you know, kind of double entendre. And moved to something that just way more reflected what it was like to go in there. And of course, just taking the mustard yellow and the ketchup red, because that's your toppings, that's how you're going to enjoy your Criff. So the classic hot dog shop with a wink, the best of New York and more, gritty but quality, edgy but friendly, from our hometown of New York. Frankly, I won't even try to do the New York accent, embarrass myself. And then the illustration style, this was one of our, at the time, designers who did all of these, hand drew over the top of, we also pulled in favours from a mate to do photography. So again, it kind of comes back to some of those other things I was talking about, the friendship and collaboration and working together to where you want to be. Creating a custom typeface. So these are kind of images of the stores that have been around for so long around St. Mark's Square, in that particular area of the West Village. So that ultimately, from the menu to the wraps to everything that you get, now it just feels cohesive, feels like a proper story. But one of the things that we loved the best was we were insistent we were going to make a film. Somehow we were going to kind of be able to pay to get the film done. So possibly still at mates rates, but also a lot of hard work of the creative director and design team who were kind of getting it done, because everybody I know is actually in the film. Plus some of the dogs. So I'll share a little bit and listen out for the script of this as well, because that then kind of also captures what it is about PRIF and New York and it being an institution.
To be frank, New York City was never dead. New York City has always been fast, steamy, sizzling, cheesy, saucy, sweet, soft, hard, fat, lean, salty, pickled, playful, all deep, iconic, wild, messy, generous, everything. It has always been, frankly, the best.
The voiceover was actually one of the girls who works in the store as well, because we've been looking, oh, you need to get a real New Yorker. And as we were talking about it, we were in there and she just came over and put something down and said something. We're like, you're the one who has to do the voiceover for us. So, altruism, goodwill, really build positive relationships because you're going to draw on them all the time. Could you just help with the typography on this? Could you help with the photography? And kind of like, I know this is going to be after hours, but you're going to do the prioritise well-being though. Take breaks, practice self-care. You know, actually going out of the studio and sitting and eating a hot dog and talking about work is way more enjoyable than just sitting behind your desk and doing it. Even the walk to get there, looking at the stuff that's around you, means that you notice the signage, which then informs your choices on the stuff that you're doing. It enhances brand reputation. If you're able to make choices for brands that are kind of are more ethical, you know, if you're working on something and you want to kind of, in the future, you could be doing glass bottles that could be down-weighted so they're not so expensive to ship. It could be that, you know, but all of these are questions that you can ask, and it may not be your choice straight away, but there's still things, not down to you to decide, but there's still things that you could be asking on the journey. It fosters loyalty as well. If you treat people with kindness, then they're going to treat you with kindness back. Invest in your own development and learning, you know, but for personal growth, you know, it's kind of cannot be, yes, we did that because we knew we were going to love it and have fun in doing it, but we learned so much doing it as well. You know, just to kind of, I'd done a lot of films before, but the creative director on it, being able to sit with him and talk about a voiceover and how to time it and what it is that you want to deliver and what's the purpose of the film and what is it that you want to capture. Create a positive culture. And ultimately, all we want to do is contribute to a better world, really. And there might be little things that you're doing along the way, but it all does make a difference, and it makes you feel better about all of the stuff that you're doing as well. So, in kind of conclusion, my spin on those first 4 words is really care. Care about your work, no matter the task, how big or small. Friendship is teamwork, you know, it does make the dream work. And that's with colleagues, about other disciplines within the studio. Some, you know, whether you're working with strategies or client service, don't put up walls. If you start working at an agency and there feels to be a divide, you go talk to people. It's so important because that's where great ideas come from. And likewise with their clients, understand what their motivations are. Don't just come, oh, they never pick anything good, or they never choose their. Understand why. Have they just started their job? Are they really nervous about it? Was there a massive failure previously? That means, and sometimes it's a slow build. Sometimes things don't happen quickly. It could be the next time you work on a project with them, where they feel more confident in you, where something is going to open up. Don't forget to play. Explore, imagine, problem solve. It's such a powerful tool. And when I was thinking about, and I don't mean play on your phone, I don't mean play games, I don't mean, if Andy used to say to me, I'll see you down the pub at 6 o'clock, you know, if I'm getting on the bus to go to, I'm not looking on my phone, I didn't have a phone. You know, I'm actually being mindful, I'm just sat on the bus, watching the world go by on the bus. When I get to the pub, if he's going to be late, he's not going to call me and go, oh, I'm going to be another half hour. So you're being mindful, thinking about stuff, allowing your head to have space to percolate and have ideas. Well, I do this, you know, the same. We're all on all the time, and it just, you need to have the space sometimes play is quiet play, and it's what's going on in your head, rather than all the other stuff that you're putting in there. And kindness. Make good choices for brands that you work with people you work with, and spend your working hours in a kinder way to yourself and to others. So I would have some questions, and because you've all sat there so nicely, I've got some nice cliche love hearts to give out, which ironically Andy gave me a hard hat, so I don't know if that means love is cruel and you're likely to get damaged, but anyway, there's please take and enjoy.
Any questions?
Yes.
I noticed like in this booklet, there's a picture that you've done stuff for Fortnum and Mason.
No, I haven't worked on the London studio for Design Rich. Worked on Fortnum and Mason. I never worked on any Fortnum and Mason. I worked on other chocolate brands though.
Such as?
Yeah. Well, I got to go to Brazil and redesign Brazil's top chocolate. So it kind of be like doing Cadbury. It was called Lacta in Brazil. I've worked on Sweden's Cadbury, which is called Marabou, which is a fun job as well. So yeah, I've lived in different places, but the jobs that you're stepping into give you opportunity to go all over the world. I went to Ghana, I went to, I think I've had the privilege of visiting in my life more than 50 countries, and a big swathe of that has been down to because we've been going there for work and projects. So always make sure you build in a bit of time before and a bit of time after, because there's nothing worse to going somewhere and coming back again. Because we used to go to Switzerland, and sometimes it would be Geneva, and and I'd go, where in Switzerland are we today? But yeah, enjoy the places you travel. Yeah.
What's the best project you've loved working on?
Oh, I knew something like that. I always loved making. I like physical things, and we about 9-10 years ago did a project with Johnny Walker. Well, did 3 years in a row, which was for their global gifting. And in fact, if I can get out of here, I'll find it and I'll show it to you later. And we took the Striding Man, and rather than him being a flat thing, because this was talking about all of their whiskies, we've got a sculpture to make him out of mirrors. And it wasn't done on CAD, he sculpted it, and it was hung in all of its pieces and completely mirrored. If you imagine a bit like a mirror ball, and then we lit it in different colours and hues and different effects to then give the feeling of the taste of the red, black, the smoky, golden, all the way up and platinum. And it was great. It was great because the client really trusted us, because that was the 3rd year that we were doing it, that he still rang me and said, do you think this is going to work? Because we'd shown them the sculptor, and all the sculptor had were animals like foxes and things. And I'm going, yeah, you can definitely do it. But they trusted us to do it. I was working with a fabulous creative director, Sam Wilkes at the time, who I just got on with so well, and the collaboration and everything was there. So yeah, and the artist, Aaron Gregory, who then built it, he's gone on to bigger things since then as well. So I think that was, for me, it was like a culmination of, again, if you had just seen it as packaging rather than an experience in a built environment, because they did a whole exhibition around it. We could walk around it, and I'll maybe at the end, if we've got time, I'll show the film.
Hi, so we started the week with Anna Goodson, the founder, and we're ending the week with you, another woman at the top of the game. What's your advice for students going into the design and illustration industry, as far as how can they ensure that they're bringing equality, diversity and inclusivity to it?
Be yourself. If I really look back at when I started, so I worked in design and advertising. When I went to Singapore, I was working for a local design agency in Singapore, and then I went to an advertising agency. If I think about how I behaved then, I think I always had this, I was more laddie, because I felt that that was the vibe. That's how you had to be. You had to kind of be that, and that didn't always sit well, So knowing who you are and having agency around what you feel and what you think is like so important. And if you're also ever feeling uncomfortable around something, that you need to call it out in the moment, and not in a bad way, but just in a, or maybe like quietly, oh, that made me feel uncomfortable then. You know, I mean, when I was working in Singapore and I worked for Dentsu, I was always doing design, a small design part of a bigger thing. And even culturally it was different, that you would go in and there'd be a lot of Japanese clients there, and I would present and they would ask my creative director, who was a man, the questions. You know, so it kind of, I think, and all of that is changing, definitely. And it's changing because of all of you, because you are all way more aware and switched on than we ever were. But I think particularly for a woman, you can still get those things of bossy, as opposed to having a clear opinion or understanding something. You can really feel, and so words really do matter. And I think women, I can speak from my, who I am, support each other. Women have got to have other women. You know, I kind of call them up behind you, because if you don't, who else is going to do it? So kind of, women I think have, through my experience, we're always the last ones to come and talk about promotion or salary. You know your worth. And I can say this because I'm rubbish at it. I kind of really, you know, I'm speaking to it from a kind of not being able to kind of do that very well. But, you know, understand what the industry norm is and ask to see what the development paths are and what you're aiming for. What's my next stage and when do you think I'll get there? Because unless you put yourself forward and talk about it, and I know it's a sweeping generalisation to say I saw more guys doing this than girls, or, you know, but just for all of you, know your worth, understand what progression means and looks like, and have a clear understanding of when you're hitting those targets as well. Yeah.
It's kind of two questions. The illustrator worked on the champion project that you showed.
Yeah.
Do you recall the name?
You know, see, I thought I knew somebody was going to ask me this, and I'm having a menopausal hot flush now. I've definitely got the brain. I don't, but I'll remember it, and I will let you know. Because even with the illustrator, because we didn't know whether the client was going to buy it, we did the whole thing where we spoke to them first and said, if this goes ahead, you know, could you give us a price to do it now as working ideas, in order that kind of if it goes ahead, absolutely, and really being truthful to those conversations as well, rather than kind of trying to blag it or cut them down in price, you know, to kind of talk to them about kind of what the thing is for you, and if it's going to work out, then, you know, I think that honesty in everything that we're doing always really pays off.
Yeah. Thank you.
How difficult do you find managing your personal life, your partners and family, with the love for travelling, especially when it's for work as well?
Well, because I make amazing friends in the places that you go to, and I think that's the hardest thing about moving, is you leave people behind, but it gives you amazing places to go back on holiday as well. And so it is hard. I think the industry we're in is hard because it's creative and it's art, and you're making it. So the desire to put more in is always there, and I think it does get exploited a little bit, that you're always going to push and do a little bit more of it. But I would say, as you're starting out, work hard, really put that, you know, kind of enjoy what you're doing, but know that it's going to get you somewhere in the end, because there's a time for the work-life balance, and there's a time when you've got the energy and the bounce back ability, and you can go out and have a drink and stay up late and go to a gig and then just rock up for work, because it's all those other things that you're doing with your friends around you. But you've got to set parameters, definitely. And again, I'm much better at telling this to other people than I am to kind of living. But that's why I've had a bit of a sabbatical now, as much as anything, to just kind of, just go, well, that was mad. You know, because I was living in New York all through COVID, and kind of, you know, I swear my dog actually talks to me now. So yeah. Know your boundaries, but be prepared to put the work in. It is the fun time. Staying late at night and working on something with your friends in the studio. Some of the best memories, you know. So don't kind of go too quickly for that. I need the work life, because the life is often also part of the enjoyment of the design that you're doing.
Thank you.
Hello, Neil. Another flatmate.
Was there any conflict of interest working with the urban brands?
No, because they're all being Suntory. They were all owned by the
Oh, right,
same.
so the-
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. So actually, it was beneficial because we were the ones who could then say, this is how you talk about this. This is how you talk about this. This is in order that they had a portfolio that reached everybody they wanted to, rather than them all merging into one thing. But also, my old CEO used to say to me, 2 is a conflict, 3 is a speciality. That's what you do, you know. So I think there's always, if people really want to work with you, I think it's only brands like Coke who have really strict non-compete. And the end. Oh no.
Sorry, it's a bit off topic, but I'm just wondering if you've taken up any new hobbies since trying to do a digital detox.
Okay, so I reupholstered a chair
Very
for YouTube. I taught myself to cable knit, and I knit all my friends really nice scarves, and I knit myself a sweater. I unintentionally knit this beautiful alpaca sweater that I gave to my niece because like she's 6 foot and I tried it on and went up, but she was very happy with the Christmas present. I went to a calligraphy workshop. I have been chopping down trees with my dad, who is nearly 85. My hands are trashed because I've also been doing lots of gardening. I made blackberry gin, wild cherry brandy, which Andy has. I've got some sloe gin and damson gin on the go, and I've got very good at baking cardamom buns.
Oh wow!
So yeah, I could retire quite happily today. Although my bank balance wouldn't be very happy with that.
Well, it's giving me some ideas.
Yeah.
What company do you work for at the moment?
I am a free agent. I was with Design Bridge for 16, nearly 17 years. I worked with them in Amsterdam, and then I had a dual role Amsterdam, New York, and then they asked me to move to New York. Time for new things. It's like the longest time I'd ever been with one, but it's also because it grew and it changed, and so now I'm looking at what is it I want to do. I have to put my portfolio together now. I have to think about the people that I want to reach out to, and what is it that I want to capture and talk about myself, and what are the things that I've enjoyed about what I've been doing, that I don't, and what are the things I don't want to do anymore as well.
This is being filmed, we're going to put it on YouTube, so you might want to use it as a platform just to reach out to people.
Oh yeah, by the way, if anybody's looking, then I'm very happy to kind of come and have a chat. But actually, I don't want to be 100% remote either, and none of you guys should as well, because the word remote says it all. Remote, distant and cold on your own. Feels like a cold, cavernous, empty space. Now, at the beginnings of your career, you should be surrounded by people. You learn stuff by osmosis. All of the little kind of, I think of it like when you look and the sun's coming through the window and all those little dust things are in the air. That's the creative magic that you get in a studio, where somebody says something or mentions something, or something gets played or shared, or somebody's read something, or it's a funny article in the paper, whatever it might be. You know, you get that from being around each other. That counts for working here in uni. We were in every day. We had to be. I'm sure we used to get clocked in, but it makes a difference because you're inspired by the people around you, and you can inspire them as well. And you're not going to get that if you're just sat at home behind the computer, putting the mute on because the washing machine's on in the background. Right, that's
That's it.